moving on to a more violent aspect, making an attack. So there's some steps to making an attack in the game, which is the attack major action. You choose a weapon and a target. So I'm going to use my sword, and I'm going to attack the boatfly, or I think that's what's called, boatfly.
Is it bloatfly? Bloatfly?
I think that I Berenstain Bears myself with this.
It's a boatfly.
Maybe it's a boatfly.
I think it's bloat.
Well, I think it's boat, so I'm going to be wrong, and that's fine.
Okay. If you want to fact check, I'll fact check.
I'll die on whatever crazy molehill I make for myself.
You're picking a beautiful hill to die on, friend.
I am. So you choose your weapon and target. You can choose your hit location if you're doing an aim. Then you attempt your test. These tests are static. So if you have a melee weapon, you do strength plus melee weapons. And if you have a ranged weapon, you do agility plus small guns, endurance plus big guns, or perception plus energy weapons. Lonnie does perception plus energy weapons. Everybody else does agility plus small guns. Thrown weapons, you do either perception plus explosives or agility plus throwing. I know that Hazel uses throwing knives, and Mardi Gras or essentially Mardi Gras beads that she throws at people. Yeah. And unarmored, which is strength plus unarmed test. The only character that used that's been the Buck clone in the more recent episode. Then you determine hit locations. So essentially, if you don't aim, then the DM essentially rolls a d20 or a specialized dice that has all the different hit locations that are like left arm, left leg, torso, head. It's different if you're Mr. Handy or robot. And then you inflict damage. So you roll your combat dice, which are unique dice to this game, which have 4 different sides: a blank side, a bullet hole side that has a single one, a double bullet hole side, and then a Vault Boy head on it. And so that's how you calculate your damage, and then you reduce your ammunition. Hit locations, there's a table that you can look at. It's on page 28 of the book. You can look and see what your hit locations are. If you're doing like a virtual tabletop, you can find some sort of roll to do that. I typically just I have a dice that I have bought from Modifius that is really nice. I like to use that. Range. We've talked about range before, that there is close, medium, long, and extreme. I rarely use extreme. Extreme, I think, is going to be more story-based because you're only going to be in extreme distance for a little bit. Like, you're going to be rolling difficulty 4s if you're like, oh, I'm on a hill overseeing a whole town, and I'm going to do Hitman Sniper and pop off the raider that's invaded the town from a hill that's, a full like mile away. You're rarely going to be having any like backfire with that. I typically don't use it, but I do use close, medium, and long range for the main zones.
There aren't too many weapons that are considered extreme either. So
I really don't know what weapons are considered extreme. Maybe I don't think
I'll have to look, but I know that there are some modifications that increase the weapon by a zone, so you probably have to take a long range weapon and mod it.
We talked about combat dice, and so if you talked about the sides of the heads, the blank sides don't do anything. Single bullet holes are 1 damage, double bullet holes are 2 damage. But the Vault Boy head is actually a damage plus your damage effect. So a lot of weapons have a damage effect. So like a vicious damage effect means that's an extra damage. So that means every Vault Boy head means 2 damage. Or maybe I think, Lonnie, your weapon has spread or Jared. Lonnie's character has spread on it, right?
It has spread and it has penetrate. So penetrate, and it's penetrate 1, so you can have different degrees of penetrate. So the more penetration you get, the more armor you get to bypass. So if someone has a lot of energy resistance on their armor, my Satch Gun is not going to do a lot. But if I roll those effects and I roll penetrate and I'm able to penetrate 2 or 3 of their energy resistance, all that damage goes through. So it's kind of a force multiplier if someone has armor on them. and then spread. Imagine a shotgun. Basically, you do a little bit of additional damage to other random parts of the body. And this gets really disgusting the more dice you throw, because you're doing more damage and you're also hitting more locations. And yeah, the scaling on that gets really gross with more combat dice.
And all of the different effects are on page 30, along with the damage types that you can do. The most interesting of the damage types, I think, is radiation. I think we've had ghouls do radiation damage to some of us. That's their own type of damage that can't be like healed with the stim pack. Like, you've got to be able to figure something out with that.
Yeah, it removes your maximum hit points, if I recall correctly. So your maximum is reduced until you fix it.
Let's talk about, speaking of all of this like damage to people. Do you have anything more to add about damage in general?
I do want to talk about the attacks real quick, because
Sure.
when we talk about 5th Ed, Pathfinder, Starfinder, when we attack, you usually have this something called like a base attack bonus or proficiency bonus in 5th Ed, and it goes up with your level. And then if you have a high strength, you're good at melee. If you have a high dex, you're good at ranged, but it really only goes up with level and if you get magic items. And in the Fallout games, your attacks are skills. So at level 1, you could decide to have your energy weapons at like target number 13, and the max is 16. So if you decide you want to spec into, I just want to be able to hit stuff really hard, you absolutely can do that. And you don't have to worry about scaling. You don't have to worry about your proficiency bonus eventually getting up to that point. Probably by level 4, you could have any of those attack stats maxed out for your career. And then you could start taking perks that, help with damage and stuff. So I find that really interesting that it's my energy weapons or small guns or big guns, they're skills. So you can hit the big targets at level 1 if you really want to, if that's how you want to invest, versus D&D where level 1 you're never going to be able to hit the Minotaur just because the numbers don't work out. You have to at least be this tall to have even a chance of hitting the Minotaur, versus here level 1, if you want to spec into that sword and be able to hit on target number 13 at level 1, go for it.
Yeah. And I think that allows like characters to, like Clark is the oldest member of our party, and he is like a accomplished mercenary, and so he can spec himself out so that he can be like the damage dealer. Like, he was like, I'm going to do a character at first, it's going to be a glass cannon, like they're just going to be able to do damage. And if you listen to his first sessions for a while, pretty much up until I think the Gator Claws, when Lonnie starts pulling off some fantastical stuff, like he is the damage dealer. Clark is the one that is able to kind of navigate through a lot of that.